G'day everyone, my name's Jeff. Welcome to another 15 minutes in the brewery. Today we're going to be talking about Schwarzbier and how I managed to save my Schwarzbier from a disaster on day 3 of fermentation, and also going to talk about, just at the end, a little bit about my Keg-king juniors and some news regarding those fermenters. So, the first thing we should probably do is get some beer. I've got my Stein, or half Stein, 500ml. And we'll fill this with some Schwarzbier, and we'll talk about how the beer is now and just go back and revise what happened about 2 to 3 weeks ago. All right, let's do it. Oh, here we go. Just get that cable out of the way. Okay, so there's the beer itself. It's a nice looking beer. That glass is a little bit dirty on the outside there. It's a nice looking beer. It's very black. I've actually got the light. I'll get the light quickly going and I'll show you how dark the beer is. I'm not sure how much you can actually see there. I'll turn it around and have a look myself. Oh yeah. So it's nice and dark with ruby highlights. Now, just to revise what happened, on day 3 of fermentation, I'll go back to the beginning. So I put the beer into transferred into my Keg-king junior, set the fermentation, set the spinning valve malfunctioned, and I had to go away for work. So I was away for 2 days. Day 3, and it was probably 24 hours into the first fermentation stage. And because I used a liquid yeast, it was a repitch of a liquid yeast, it kicked off really fast. It was fermenting at, I had it set at 11.5 degrees Celsius, and so I was about 24 hours into strong fermentation, where I came back from my jobs, my work, checked the fridge, and found to my horror that the Schwarzbier had overpressurized, like gone up to 30 psi probably, or more even, who knows. I actually don't know, because that gauge only goes to 15, and then after that the needle will go around until it hits the stopper at the start, and it was on the stopper at the start, so I have no idea how high it got to, but probably above 25, 30, maybe even above 30. Anyway, I knew something was wrong as soon as I got back and opened the fridge. I could smell hydrogen sulphide, like really strong. And I knew straight away I shouldn't be smelling hydrogen sulphide like that coming from my fridge only 24 hours or so into active fermentation. Normally the sulfur comes, normally the first bit of active fermentation, you don't really get much sulfur with the specific yeast that I'm using. And it's normally not till about day 3 or 4 that you start to smell the sulfur in the fridge. So to smell that much hydrogen sulphide, I knew something was wrong. So I found the pressure gauge was too high, released the pressure. I told you that in the last video. So I basically just, I spent about 5 hours, it took about 5 hours to get the pressure out, because there was not much headspace. It was in one of these, so the Keg-king junior, it was probably up to about there, the beer level. So as soon as you let the pressure go, it just went, foamed up the top, and it just did that over and over and over again until I got the pressure off. So once I got the lid off, what I did was I swirled the fermenter. So I took the fermenter, I lifted it up gently, and leaned it over, not to spill beer, just to get as much of the CO2 and hydrogen sulfide gas, just to let it kind of flow out. Stood it back up and then shook it up. Really swirled it up hard as I could, closed the lid, gave it a big shake with the lid closed, let it settle, did the same thing again, got the lid off, tipped it to get any gas, CO2, and as soon as, when I opened the lid again, I could smell hydrogen sulfide again, but not as bad. It was much better, and I did the same process again, got as much air into it as I could, closed it up, shook it around. Now, it's always a risk to put air into your beer during fermentation, but I mean, it's during fermentation. I knew how far into fermentation it was. It was only 24 hours into the main fermentation phase, and it wouldn't have peaked yet. So I knew it was pretty low risk that it was going to cause any oxidation issues long term. I knew any air that I introduced was going to help the yeast. And the yeast were going to use that oxygen straight away and get back into fermenting the beer properly, because the yeast were definitely stressed. There was obviously not enough oxygen in the fermenter itself, and the pressure gone too high. So the combination of really high pressure and not enough O2 in the fermenter had caused the yeast to just stress out and just go into hydrogen sulphide production severe, you know. Now, there was no, I didn't know if I was going to save the beer. I didn't know how the beer was going to turn out. But what I did after that was on day 6, the pressure had built up to about 9 psi again, and I released the pressure, dumped the pressure like really fast, blew up the yeast cake on the bottom of the fermenter, allowed that yeast cake to flood back up into suspension, and then closed it back off again, and then let it go. I ran it at 16 degrees Celsius for 7 days just to keep it warm, to keep that yeast nice and active. And by the time it came to cold crashing, the pressure had actually built back up to 13 psi. So during that phase, there was, after the second pressure dump, there was definitely fermentation going on. Pressure built back up to 13 psi, and then I just cold crashed it over a few days and kegged it. That's the beer now, and I'm happy to report no harm done. Literally no harm done. It smells beautiful. It smells like a Schwarzbier. To me, you do get a hint of sulfur, but just like a normal lager hint of sulfur, nothing excessive. And I'll pick up chocolate and vanilla and a bit of roast, a bit of coffee roast, and a bit of that crystal caramel malt. And it's just such a beautiful aroma. And the taste, it's a wonderful beer. It's very nice. It's got a nice long palate, like a nice long presence on the palate. You can taste the chocolate, coffee, vanilla in the flavour. You can't taste any sulphur. You get that crispness being a lager. It's a really nice beer, really nice malts, and the malt bill I thought worked really well. Contrast that just briefly to my Dunkel, which I was doing at the same time. Not so sure the Dunkel came out as good. That's currently in the fridge as well, in keg conditioning, but I found the body on that's probably a little bit thin for my liking. So I've got some issues with the body on that one, but that's just recipe design. This one came out very good, and if I had to change anything, I might try this actually low alcohol. I'm not sure how much I would actually change with this beer, to be brutally honest. I just don't know. It's something I'd have to sit down and really think about. I think the malt selections were pretty much ideal, and it was just Pilsner, Wyman Bohemian Pilsner, Gladfield Munich, and crisp black malt. So just those 3 malts. And the Pilsner is the base and the main malt. I think the Pilsner is around 60%, something like that. Then the Munich, and I think the black malt was roughly 4% or something like that. That's a great beer. I could, and I have already. I've already had 4 or 5 of these in a row. So the keg's already getting hammered, and it's almost not even a week in the keg. So I've got to slow down and let this one, probably would benefit from a little bit of time, I think. Probably, actually, you know what, probably the one thing I would fix, or not fix, but change, is probably the IBUs. I don't think the IBUs are as present as the recipe said they would be. I had hops to 31 IBUs, and it was just a 60-minute addition of Magnum to 31 IBUs. I'd probably go up to about 35. But it might just be me, because I like bitter beers, so it might just be my palate not detecting enough bitterness because I'm so used to drinking bitter beers. So I'd probably take it up to 35 IBUs, so just raise the IBUs a little bit. Maybe a late addition, maybe add a little bit of floral Hallertau tradition or something like that as a late addition. That might be okay, but probably not. Probably just keep it as a 60-minute addition. So it's a great beer. So I guess the moral of the story is, if there is a moral of this story, is never give up, I guess. Never give up if you have an issue with fermentation, you've got stressed yeast. If you're in the peak of fermentation, I think it's pretty safe to get the lid off your fermenter, shake it around, get air in, and help those yeasts to go back to a healthier fermentation if they're stressed out. So for me, because I actually had a fermentation a few months back, which got really stressed, just a lack of oxygen, and it was dry yeast too. It was in a Fermenting Junior as well, and it was probably about 17 litres, and I pitched it with, and it wasn't a high alcohol beer actually, it was only a moderate, probably low 4%. Pitched a packet of US-05, and a very similar thing happened. I ended up with very stressed yeast and hydrogen sulphide off the charts, but I caught it too late, and it had already pretty much was done. The yeast were done, and I don't think I was ever going to bring them back to life. And I ended up having to tip that beer because I could not get the sulfur out. Once that yeast were done, that sulfur was pretty much in that beer permanently, and I couldn't get it out. So catch it early enough, and you can turn it around with a bit of air, get some air in the fermenter, and turn it around. So that's the Schwarzbier. Happy to say it worked out, and I'm really happy about that because I was really annoyed when I saw anyway. Oh, plus I've also bought another spunding valve now, so I've got 2 blow ties now, so I don't ever have to use that other one ever again. Now, the other thing I want to talk about quickly is my Fermenting Juniors. So I've got 3 of these now. I actually only had 2, but now I've got 3, and it's something. It's going to be the subject of a couple of videos, at least one video, maybe 2 coming up, and that is a couple of years ago I put a video up, and if you go back in the channel, it's probably going to be deleted by the time this video goes live. Possibly, it's going to be deleted eventually anyway, but it'll probably be deleted by the time this video goes live. So a couple of years back, I got 2 of these fermenters, and I had nothing but troubles with them. Nothing but troubles with the PRVs were faulty, and they leaked CO2. I lost several CO2 bottles. They were just a nightmare because I bought these to use as fermenters and kegs, so serving vessels and fermenting vessels, because that's what they are. They're dual purpose. They worked okay as fermenting vessels, although they still didn't hold the pressure, and it didn't keep the CO2 in when it was fermenting as much as it should have. But they really fell down when it came to using them in the fridge as a serving vessel. The PRVs just kept leaking, even at really low pressures. I had a lot of trouble, and I had a lot of drama with Keg-king at the time. I kind of got a really bad taste from that, and I wasn't really that happy with Keg-king, to be brutally honest. Okay, not that I'm not bagging them out. So you got to listen to the whole story before you judge what I'm trying to say. So long story short, I kept using them as fermenters. I just wouldn't use them as serving vessels. And these have popped up in my Instagram feed, and they've popped up in some videos from time to time. And so people probably wonder, if they've ever watched that video, they probably wonder, oh, he still uses them. Like, what's the deal with that? So the deal is I've kept using these as fermenters because they're really handy to do for test batches. If I want to do like 15 litres, which comes up to about here, 17, 18, so between 15 and 18 litres, it's a good sized test batch. You're not going to brew enough beer that if you don't like it, you have to drink the whole lot, or you end up tipping some out because you just get sick of it. And if you brew a really great beer, fantastic, So, but recently, so this is the story. Recently, and this was about 2 months ago, Daniel from Keg-king, you probably know him from their YouTube channel, he actually reached out to me via email and asked me if I was willing to give these another try, give them another go. Now, he watched the other video, and in his email he basically said he understands my frustrations, and he understands why I published the other video. He understands the problems I had, and he wasn't blaming me for anything. But he offered me an olive branch, basically, and said, listen, if you want to, I'll send you one, try it again, see what you think. And I actually thought about it for quite a while. I wasn't quite sure what to do, but I thought, you know what, why not? I lost 4 CO2 bottles, which cost me over $100, just over $100 to refill when I had the dramas with these initially in the beginning. So I thought, well, why not? Right? I lost money in the beginning because these gave me hell with their faulty PRVs. Give it another go. So he sent me another one in the mail. He also sent me a couple other items, which I'll talk about in a different video. Just little accessories. And basically the premise was, have a go, see how you think again, no pressure. You don't have to talk about it. You don't have to make a video about it. It's up to you, but if you do, let us know. So what I've actually been doing in the last 2 months, because it's been 2 months, probably a bit over 2 months since he actually emailed me and sent the new unit up. So what I've been doing is using them, testing them. I didn't want to just grab one and do a review or talk about it straight away. I've actually been testing them throughout the last 2.5 months, and testing the specific unit, which is currently in my fridge as a serving vessel, and I can happily report no issues. I've had no issues with that in the fridge. I'm running my my CO2 at the moment at around, I think it's around 12 psi at the moment. I've got a little bit higher because I've got a few lagers on, and I like them a bit more higher psi. The one he sent me, it's in the fridge. It's got a Munich Helles in it. It's got about 12 psi going into it from the bottle, and it's been in the fridge now for 3 weeks, probably just over 3 weeks. And I'm happy to report no issues. PRV's holding strong. All the seals on the unit have held perfectly well, and I haven't lost any gas at all. The gas bottle actually hasn't changed in the last 2.5 weeks, 3 weeks. The level on the high pressure gauge hasn't changed. So I'm using it again as a serving vessel, and I've actually got a second one now. So one of my old ones, which has had an upgraded lid, and I'm using that as a serving vessel as well. That's plugged in, that's on the top shelf, and I can report that even that one is fine. They're holding pressure now. There's no issues at all. So basically what I'm gonna do is the actual video I did a couple of years back, where I vented my frustration about these units. I'm actually gonna take that video down, and I'm gonna take it down because I don't think, it's not because I'm backtracking or because, someone sent me some free stuff, so I better take it down to make them happy. It's nothing to do with that. If these units failed in the fridge, I would have left that video up. I would have left it up, and I would have just moved on with my life. But they've changed, and obviously they've fixed the issues that they had initially. So I was willing to give them another go. I was willing to give it another go and test them out fully. So far I've run how many fermentations? I've run 5 fermentations through them, and I've got 2 of them in the fridge now. So I'm testing them both for serving and for fermenting, and no issues. So like I keep saying, no issues. So that's what's going to happen. So I'm actually going to do a review video. That'll be in the next few weeks. Just a matter of time for me, really. But I also want to make sure, like I said, that I actually tested these out properly and had real advice that I could give people and a real opinion. So I'm going to do a review video where I actually talk about the unit that was sent to me. I'm going to talk about the couple of accessories as well, and there might be something else in that video that might interest people. So that's what's going to come up. That's the current story with these units. I actually don't mind these units, to be brutally honest. I really like the size. I think they're a handy size. I don't have issues cleaning them. Like, a lot of people complain about the narrow necks on these, that you can't get your arm in to clean. Like, I don't get my arm in there. I don't need to get my arm in there. I can get these things sparkling clean, nice and clean. And once I've cleaned them, I fill them with sanitizer solution right to the top straight away. Sanitize them, push that out with CO2, and I always leave them. I try to always leave them pressurized. So that'll sit now for a week or 2 weeks or a month, 2 months. It'll just sit there with CO2 in it, and that won't leak at all. It'll probably leak over a year. Like, if I left that for a year or two, it'll probably leak. But yeah, so that's the story with my Keg-king Juniors. That's the story of my Schwarzbier. Hallelujah, we saved the Schwarzbier. So yeah, food for thought, I guess. And if you ever have that issue with fermentation where you have your yeast are really unhealthy in the primary phase because you didn't get enough O2 in there, or for whatever reason, yeah, I think opening the lid, shaking, getting some air in there, especially when they're in primary fermentation, I think can really save a beer. And I save this, like, there is no hint of excessive sulfur in this at all, which is fantastic. So on that note, I'm going to stop waffling. I'm actually going to go. I'm going to finish this beer. I've got some work to do, and I'll see you again in another video. If you stayed this far to the end, then thank you. Thank you for watching right to the end. If you did, if you got anything out of it, I'm glad. I try to give people as much information as I can to help people out. And because I love homebrewing, and homebrewing is bloody awesome. So thanks again. See you next time. Bye.